Welcome to HR Studio Podcast. Through bi-weekly interviews with HR executives, thought leaders, authors, speakers, and trend spotters from the world of HR and beyond, we invite you to listen, learn, and leverage. Welcome to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. HR Studio Podcast is brought to you by A.J. O'Connor Associates, a trusted human capital consulting partner to emerging, mid-market, and world-class organizations. To learn more, visit us at ajoconnor.com.
Welcome, everyone, to HR Studio Podcast. I'm Denise Josephat, your host for today's episode. Over the next 25 minutes, we're going to explore the topic of how we leverage the unique power of relationships to our business advantage. And helping us as our thought leader today is Zvi Band. Welcome, Zvi.
Thanks so much for having me today.
I'm so excited. Let me say a little bit about Zvi. Zvi is the co-founder and CEO of Contactually, a top CRM platform for relationship-oriented businesses. Contactually has 75 employees and tens of thousands of customers. Zvi is an engineer, developer, entrepreneur, strategist, and startup advisor with both technical and non-technical expertise. He has been named a Washington Tech Titan 4 times and has various other awards as well. Besides being the CEO of his highly successful company, he is a passionate speaker and writer and has been featured in the New York Times and the Washington Post, among other outlets. Zvi is the author of the book, Success is in Your Sphere, Leveraging the Power of Relationships to Achieve Your Business Goals. So welcome again, Zvi.
Denise, we're up to a great start. Not only did you pronounce contactually correctly, which is oftentimes like auto-corrected to contractually, but you even pronounced my name. So we're off to a really great start, so thank you.
All right, we got it going. All right, so let me start out just asking you, what are the barriers today to maintaining meaningful relationships?
Yeah, really great question. So it's not necessarily just today. This has been been a long-standing issue. The Robin Dunbar did a piece of research and identified that the average human can only maintain around 150 relationships at any one point in time. Obviously, there are a lot more than 150 people that will matter to us. It's only being exacerbated though nowadays by technology. We live in this amazing world where we can be connected to so many more people, but the challenge is that for the people we're trying to hire, for our employees, for business opportunities, they are connected to so many people as well. And so we're seeing that the time decay of memory is only accelerating. And that's why I think we need to be much more intentional around relationship building these days.
Right. And we have so many outlets. We have social media. I know people that if you don't like something, they get insulted. I mean, the whole relationship dynamic has changed, right?
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, we're also going a mile wide and an inch deep. You're right. Because for so many people, our relationship with them is nothing more than, liking their posts and commenting once in a while. But if we reached out to them and, asked a question or needed their help in some way, would we help them or would they help us? We don't know. And that's definitely one of the bigger challenges. So it's no surprise that Cigna did a survey of 20,000 Americans and over half identified as being lonely, which is crazy in a world where we're surrounded by so many more people.
Yeah, that is absolutely heartbreaking, right?
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about, we think about relationships often as soft skills and soft, and business goals as hard, but they're really interconnected. And so tell us your approach to it, the capital approach, really connects the two. Tell us a little bit about that.
You're right, because soft skills are obviously an incredibly important thing for the ability for you and I to connect and relate, right? That is still important. That's still table stakes. What we can scaffold around it, though, is the structure and process behind it.
Mhm.
And that's really the point of the capital strategy. It is, for example, making sure that we walk out of a meeting and a conversation and we take notes of the small talk that we recorded.
Mhm.
It's thinking about making sure that, okay, like I want to stay in touch with Denise every 90 days because I believe there's an opportunity for us to work with each other at some point in the future. It's those kind of things that are hard, technical, scientific skills that allow us to at least, relate more, more intentionally with people.
Yeah, and it's much more deliberate, much more intentional, as you said, and deliberate in the way we approach people and approach those relationships.
Exactly. And so walking through the capital strategy, the C for capital is consistency, making sure that we're consistent in our behaviors, right? It is blocking off time in our calendar to make sure that we're being proactive with people instead of reactive. A is for aggregate. One of our challenges we face these days is we have contacts in our phone and our email and our calendar and LinkedIn and Facebook and, our old email address over there that we never use.
Instagram.
Exactly, right? How do we just build a database of all the people that we know? From there, and this is where a lot of people feel uncomfortable, we have to prioritize our relationships.
Mm.
Yes, again, we want to relate to people, but we have to start being selective around who we relate with. I have 40,000 contacts in my database, right?
Woo!
Who are the 500 that I really want to make sure that I'm staying in touch with, right? That I really think can help with my business goals. From there, it's investigate, gaining intelligence around relationships, remembering the small talk, doing our research, learning people's wants and needs. From there, it's the T is for timely engagement. Again, you can have a great conversation, but that relationship will go nowhere if you never speak again. So how do we make sure that we're staying top of mind with our relationships? And from there, the A is for adding value. And a lot of people think that networking and relationship building is about following up and following up and following up. But really, we're not trying to follow up. We're trying to add value and we're trying to help each other out. And the last L in capital is for leverage. And that's, making sure that we're making the best use of our time. Maybe it's hiring a virtual assistant or having email templates or buying a stack of books to have by our desk so we can easily send it out rather than having to search for and buy a book every time. It's doing those things that can make such a big difference.
Yeah. And I understand, we work with a lot of corporate leaders, corporate HR leaders. So how does this work in the internal corporate world?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the interesting things that we saw our product Contactually before this being used for is, in the HR world, wouldn't necessarily always be about recruiting. Yes, of course, any HR leader knows that, you want to be building relationships with people that aren't necessarily going to work for you a month from now, but maybe a year from now or 3 years from now, 4 years from now. And that's where a good CRM can help. But it's also for those internal relationships. How am I building relationships with the team internally, or how am I helping my team build those relationships, right? If we want to make sure that the CEO is having a personal engagement with every employee once a quarter, great. How do we as a team identify the retention risks and make sure that we're regularly staying top of mind for them? So we saw, and this is such a blessing, but we saw an incredible use of not only the tools we built, but the lessons about capital and relationship building apply internally to the organization and not just externally in order to bring new people in.
Yeah, excellent. So as an HR leader, what are some of the things they can do to foster this relationship building? You mentioned, maybe making sure the CEO gets out and, has people on his calendar and being very purposeful of that. What are some other examples that HR leaders can do to help foster these really critical internal relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the investigate, the small talk stuff, right? I was just I was in a coffee meeting right now with one of my employees, and he was talking to me about his weekend plans, and through that, he mentioned his wife's name and his kid's name, and I realized like I actually didn't know that before, right? I
Oh,
made a
wow.
point of writing that down, and now I'm going to capture that, and I can, instead of saying like, "Hey, how's your weekend, with your wife?" I was like, "Hey, how's Casey doing?" Right?
Nice.
Um, that shows that we care about this person, not just as an employee, but as a person. So it's small little things like that. It's the beyond the table stakes of remembering their birthdays, but like remembering their anniversaries and work anniversaries. It's remembering their tastes. So when you're going out for dinner with them, you remember like that they love Thai food. Okay, let's go to a Thai restaurant. Small little things that you show and you care about the person. That again, it may come across as soft skills to them, but really there's a strategy that helps us remember and act on all this.
Right. And it really does go a long way because they think more highly of you for remembering all that. And then when something comes up that they think might be valuable to you, you're top of mind.
Exactly. One of the things that we used to do, with Contactually is that, for people's birthdays, is it wouldn't just be kind of, the silly little gift on a desk, but it'd be like a really nice picture that we made of them that would be something that was very uniquely them. Like it would include like, maybe their office nicknames or the memes they like or something like that, that every single time someone would look at it, they'd kind of laugh, go like, oh, that's very much you. It's not just a picture of the team signed by the CEO or anything like that, but something really personal.
Oh, nice. Nice. So tell us, you talk about playing the long game by, setting up the right habits and in maintaining relationships. How does that relate to company culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we're thinking about company culture, like the values that we instilled, at Contactually, we're not just focused on how our company operates tomorrow, but it's how our company operates 3 or 4 years from now.
Mm.
So when it came to like, for example, instilling values, we would be very intentional that a lot of our values were aspirational. Or when we thought about hiring, again, we didn't necessarily hire people, and we shouldn't be hiring people in our organization focused on the jobs they're going to do nowadays. But are they the people that are going to be bringing in the right sensibilities or the right skills and right values that will matter for us 3 to 5 years in the pipeline? Even early on, one of the relationship building techniques that we made is that we were intentional at fostering relationships with C-suite level executives that had absolutely no business being involved with an early stage company. But when you get to millions in revenue, clearly they're the right people to bring in, and they already had a relationship with us. So again, it's thinking about, and from an HR perspective, it's not about necessarily building the business we want today, but it's building the business that we want 3 to 5 years from now.
Forward focused.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, you hear a lot about today companies are looking, the capabilities and the competencies will always be important, but they're looking for that fit and they're looking for, will this person relate well in this organization? Will they be able to build those relationships? So comment a little bit about that and how we even look for people differently based on how they can build relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always kind of the airport test, right? If I was sitting with them in an airport, could we have an interesting conversation? Which, isn't necessarily always the right thing. I mean, that's where from our experience, it is that's where reference checks obviously can come into play, where they're not necessarily just talking about them as from a skill set, but
Mm-hmm.
that how they operated as human beings, right? And you can tell, I think you can tell through reference checks, whether someone personally cares about that, or can they speak to their organization, their prior experience, not just from the skills they did, but the people they worked with.
Mm.
That obviously comes down, especially important when we're hiring people leaders in our organization. We want to understand, the relationships that they were able to build in the organization, the people that they could very specifically name that they were able to nurture and grow. That's something that we can be very proud of.
Yeah, very cool. And so you mentioned, the capital model and all the different steps in it. Are there any, highlights you can give or any examples of, taking one of those steps and say, that we really, here's a great example of how to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, when we talk about adding value, we're not just trying to follow up with them. We're not trying to follow up after a meeting, but it's how do we think that every interaction is an opportunity to be meaningful, relevant, and authentic. So stitching together, a couple of the examples. There's a story in the book of meeting someone for coffee. Again, this is a potential hire that someone wanted to make. Again, normal conversation around, potential opportunities and learning about their skill set. But as they were walking out of the coffee shop, the two of them were exchanging the normal small talk. And, the candidate happened to mention they were playing in a basketball tournament. That their kids, upon further investigation and question asking, that their kids are really interested in playing basketball and actually love playing basketball, and it's kind of a family activity. That's the kind of stuff
not
that
for
can
me. I don't have the height, but
I'm way too awkward for that too. But that's the kind of information that can normally go in one ear out the other, right? No one really cares about what someone else is doing that weekend. But making a point of taking a note of that, the teller of this story said that they went home, and instead of just sending a normal thank you note, like, "Hey, Stephen, it was great meeting you. Thank you. I look forward to staying in touch." They went on Amazon and spent $10 and had a basketball sent to their house. With a little note, again, from Amazon, just saying, "Hey, Stephen, really great spending time with you. Hope you enjoy this with your kids."
Wow.
$10 and 5 minutes, right?
Huge investment.
And completely different experience. And again, it's not about, the money that we spend or what we do. It's how we make other people feel that's most important. And can you imagine the difference in perception that candidate had, with that experience versus getting a normal thank you note, which honestly, they may not even bother reading. They can just delete, right?
Yeah.
And so it's how you weave and how you be more structured, because all that person did was, capture that information, right? Just note it in the CRM. When they wanted to follow up, they leveraged that information and thought, "Hey, how do I just deliver some kind of valuable experience to that person?" And looking through those notes, very quickly said, "Oh, cool, yeah, of course, this person likes playing basketball with their kids. Let's send them basketball." That's it.
Right. So simple, and yet it meant, I'm sure, so much to the person who received it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you talked about prioritizing relationships, which of course we have relationships coming at us all the time, and my spouse is my priority, my kids, and, but, is it only about prioritizing those relationships that get you somewhere? I mean, how would you prioritize?
Yeah, and so I think it is worth taking a step back and trying to understand what are the goals we're trying to achieve? What does success look like? And then who are the types of people that believe best contribute to those goals? And an important thing, though, to your point, is not necessarily the people that can help us, but the people that we can be of service to also, right? And it really has to be mutual. Obviously, you and I have been on many a screening call or many conversations where we can tell, yes, this person could help my organization, and this person is a good candidate, but really, I don't believe that our organization can be helpful to them. Yeah. And so it definitely has to be a two-way street. That's something that most of us oftentimes lose track of. Like if we're trying to stay engaged with past clients, for example, it's not just because we we think that they'd be a great client for us, but we think we can truly help them be successful.
Nice. Well, I want to make sure that we wrap up and get you out on time. This was a wonderful, great, thought-provoking conversation, and so I'm so appreciative that you took the time today to meet with us. Any other just kind of last-minute advice you want to give to our rising HR leaders? If you had one or two thoughts on the top of your head that you'd say, go for this or do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Every business is a series of relationships, right? It's relationships with with clients, with prospective clients, with vendors, with employees, with prospective employees. And as long as we really focus on the relationships in the business, not just do we, the transactional nature of hiring someone or firing someone, but really focus on the relationships, not just for now, but for a longer period of time. That is a fundamental mindset shift that definitely changed the course of our organization and can change the course of yours as well.
Yeah, very nice. What a great way to wrap it. All right, so thank you so much for being here today. I want to speak out to all our podcast listeners. If you are not a subscriber yet to HR Studio Podcast, you can become one by going to hrstudiopodcast.com. You'll get notified of new episodes. Also there you'll find all of our speakers' social handles and contact information, the show notes, and more about the book. Look, we're also going to raffle off to one of our new subscribers this book, so be sure to subscribe. And you'll get some great reading here. Thank you again, Zvi, and wishing you a wonderful weekend. Stay cool out there. And again, thank you for joining us.
Denise, thank you for your time. This was a great interview. I loved it. And I really, truly hope that everyone walked away with at least a little bit of value today. Thank you so much.
I think they got a lot. Thank you. Take care.
Welcome to HR Studio Podcast. Through bi-weekly interviews with HR executives, thought leaders, authors, speakers, and trend spotters from the world of HR and beyond, we invite you to listen, learn, and leverage. Welcome to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. HR Studio Podcast is brought to you by A.J. O'Connor Associates, a trusted human capital consulting partner to emerging, mid-market, and world-class organizations. To learn more, visit us at ajoconnor.com.